detect. Oh, okay. I don't think that was good. I was
Yeah.
I figured it out that.
Are we ready?
Okay.
Wait, let me just start the phone.
This isn't you, what the hell?
It's a good call. We've recorded twice and our iPads shut off both times.
Yeah.
When we're hitting.
What that is.
Wait, I think give me one second. Sorry.
Okay.
Wait, is it the first one or the second one?
It's the, I've just sent it twice because Jordan wanted me to put it on the second.
Alright.
What did we get? Advantage towards economic stagnation and upward recessions produce rapid unemployment by excluding prime-age workers from the labor force that guarantees prolonged slow growth. On a 22 pound research setting, even over employment rates fall, labor force participation rate fast. One worker was good permanently by workers works not seen wage increase, which Spain decline participation, structural 69, Spain participation 55 and rising countries with higher participation, more regulated markets more, except the safety net, so much of social shifts or education like the Americans volunteer leaving the number of those reported not wanting a job is decline labor supply conditions. Explain very little, we do not find evidence workers want to pursue education, care, household work, insufficient demand produces insufficient new redundancy, labor keeps wage growth low, encourages workers to volunteer leave, hinders growth, missionaries, jobs and wages stagnation inevitable, ever rates have fallen greatly, could be long lasting. Insufficient demand makes economic stagnation inevitable. The plan's targeted job creation is the only way to solve structural and proximate causes of decline by stimulating consumer spending while avoiding inflationary pressures. Donna's 22. Insufficient demand is the primary reason for slow growth of demand causes slow investment, boosting capacity, sees demand side, reducing investment costs, insufficient demand causes labor underutilization, waste, inequality, insufficient spending with falling participation is indicative of insufficient demand problems, not demographic robots, some recovery due to insufficient job creation as well as high wages, stagnation is periodically by short bursts of sustainable asset price levels once the worst return to stagnation, recent expansion, recovery, precision rate, density, raise demand, price when make a BI by raise demand beyond ability to grow, packaging outputs results might be stagnation, inflation, ELR brings boost in the labor force without feeling inflation. The most robust studies agree demand is a deciding factor in stagnation. Inflation concerns miss the mark. Storm 19. Wage growth is made to determine productivity. Rising wages provide incentives to invest in labor supply and machinery. Productivity short term wages with low basis have little incentives to invest. Monetization growth falters. Stagnation must be to decline in wages. Wage growth as to demand shortages lower stock growth slows down. Wage growth rates and inflation is really less unexpected because growth is a response to increased productivity demand. Output empirical evidence makes case for demand-led stagnation. Historical analysis of multiple pieces of evidence all point in the same direction. Demand is leading supply, full employment rates, productivity demand to supply side. Over size inflation barrier entirely possible. Demand growth without inflation medium more realistic. Less buyer measures more remove one more to buy speak. Demand feeds into slow productivity unless we discard. Opinion stagnation supply side stagnation remains a normal. Secular stagnation is a crisis accelerant. It collapses U.S. primacy, making nuclear war, proliferate and every other great power conflict far more likely. Oppenheimer 21. U.S. power decline relative to other stations under 79 populism and liberal institutions, stagnation, clearly like liberal globalization, multipolarity, and national define our future world is entering a long period of diminishing growth and increased spending might be burdened austerity politics, sole insured exposition be particularly national governments, change course, rising nationalism, populism, affect lower growth makes the global order more difficult to sustain politics and polarized collaboration, tactic, and amount of leadership be unavailable. During institutional legal battlegrounds, U.S. celebrity taking my rivals, allies, economies, incentivizing investment, political effects, reduce interest, reduce constraints, interdependence, enabler for leader war, the economic constraints for aggression, already too many hotspots, independence, SES, Taiwan, multipolarity, and all of a sudden changes states may defecting greater uncertainty, greater possibility about attempted adversaries, psychology, high potential escalation, preventative war states are always on edge, interesting ways, scenarios are heightened by weakening institutions clearly in decline, confidence in government, single legitimacy through external conflict, inequality, multipolarity, has powers, business challenges, pharmacy, worsening, relations to the competition will be defining, more complicated, now proliferates or transfer weapons and health, safety about multiple war, clears evidence, wide distribution of power away from nuclear scenario, gap, GDP, supporting to power from the economy, state, tax, and apply power, growth on a given market free for all, reduce multipolarity, products, relative decline in market capacity, increasing levels of waste, innovation, widening inequality, constantly spreading stress tests for dealing with systems, head on, has lost its leadership, revitalizing the U.S. order solves a litany of risks. House 22 decline in world order defense becomes the United States opposition by Russia had by time Russian create Russian group influence is part of the quest for global primacy on a trajectory to competition with the U.S. Race of colliding climate pandemic speaker proliferation American cohesion race U.S. leadership and underpinned by order for the last 75 years. High competition makes it difficult to produce cooperation, prospects of major power wars in Europe and in the Pacific and for Iran cause instability to produce most dangerous promises. World War II has for U.S. to rediscover national power against disorder. Only the plan stabilizes the business cycle and avoids the negative effects of pump priming. It's 19. JG works as automatic stabilizer. JG increases employment jobs around the private sector and decreases private sector expands. JG prevents voluntary unemployment spending much more stable when someone gets a job. JG is economy needs to recover from the tension. JG percent financial assets government stimulus is more stable than private-led. Nairu causes uses involuntary unemployment to achieve stability. JG using employment buffer side GG, address inflation, deflationary pressures, buffer side fluctuates, business cycle, fixed wage, works in price anchor, all of the prices have like nominal value relative to price of an hour anchoring against the number of inflation set to high wage job workers and prices are leading to one time increase. However, today's managed economy shows more likely to increase utilization of production facilities and prices below wage not indexed any other has no mechanism that feeds the wage price spiral. JG facilities more constitution of private sector firms prefer those who have previously been employed. JG provides training, lowers higher cost runs of private sectors unable to expand production capabilities demand as exceed production, reducing risk of inflation. JG provides rate for wage increase not relative to productivity, which prevents a wage price spiral. Traditional property design not incorporate counter-inflation mechanisms. Subnational actors have the fiscal capacity to ensure full employment. Carpenter 20. FTG would be administered by the DOL states have the weakest capacity to respond to economic crisis. It's another the Fed back to economic money states lack revenue capacity of constrained powers of the BBA to minimize inequality. Workers would be federally employed. Federal government needs to provide the jobs to avoid imposition requirements. Federal government could offer jobs as an option. Therefore, the United States federal government should adopt a federal jobs guarantee advantage to its workers. Two scenarios. First, unions, they're latent, but the plan revitalizes them, providing leverage to workers. Excel 22 workers compared to make little sense for most sensible predecessors were hardly work scams, my marriage conditions have low likelihood of position because guarantee would lead to structural leverage to workers optional mock funding another secure optional track overall LPR increases, guarantee builds mobilization capacity, making news mass utilization possibility, we don't have legs without assurance workers feel their disposable techniques to alleviate the fear, facilitate growth, bring thousands of to take basic aim, weekend facilitate collective action, only an exit option solves regulatory tweaks are insufficient, have 23 unique features to test markets and make regulatory solution insufficient demand, North's bargaining power granting an outside option prevents effective solution relative to tweaking regulatory resources of workers empowerment regulatory solution continue to deficient for countering monopoly federal fiscal policy that stops short of JG for anything which strengthen buying power over local population without federal fallback programs out of captive pool of workers. Biden will inevitably push democratic norms globally, but weak domestic unions ensure authoritarianism prevails. Star 23 Biden priorities illustrate shifting us thinking about focus on organized liberal democracy, essential democracy, media strongly members, Biden cast a little pro-union how rhetoric translating meaningful action more complicated. Biden marked as policy of affairs unions, capacity to force political change for our ways follow organizations starting from the democratic design of the West, important for the US to use faithful cloud economic part of support workers rights, build connection between movements around the globe, emphasis on building a direct link between advancing democratic democracy, clash with authoritarian machines, organizations are generally would have clear self-power dividends, contract to be working condition, BRI, compared to US, punching war same with a lot of countries, democracy plugs existential risk from a laundry list of impacts, nuke war, pandemic, climate change, and future tax risk, Battlefield 23, 2006, which is about dealing with disasters more likely major power wars, miscog, might be prime due to precision and distance for accurate information, station like the sanctions, WMDs, 2006, or less cooperative, lack of transparency, limits, and agreements, for reduce climate change, inequality, offensive power, AI, particularly to be concerned about lacking in future services, AGI, based on surveillance, emerging powers, 2000 world extension, as well as distortion of human trajectory, which threaten destruction of humanity's potential. The second scenario is the federal bureaucracy, withering state capacity, imperils critical federal functions, readiness, pandemic response, and environmental regulations, a reserve army of the unemployed solves with 23 U.S. for lack of state capacity, outsource core functions that are vulnerable to defense like pandemics, much worse than the wars of federal communities, Iraq war, hurricane, Ukraine, financial crisis, COVID, the made clear the capacity not what it was. America needs a better bureaucracy, and delays passage for years, drive like cost solar, and better we need to speak armored as we are arcading building how. I mean, if I know if you're writing behind being violated rather than waiting for lawsuit, bureaucrats, governments, markets, exam projects within America's economy via lawsuits, alternatives to hiring bureaucrats to protect the economy without causing delays, outsourcing non-profits, agency profits of the rip policy, incentives are hard to get the right. Government's flights to control, we find evidence state capacity, quality, inversely to cops with the go in, the government's monitors Medicare, everybody's ways for a huge amount of responsible monitoring bureaucrats. During early pandemic, CDC has absolutely no resources, they're overwhelmed with the war and China overturn one like we need. Preparing China's more effective in building stuff quickly, China's massive production advantage means the US we need to try and make advantage, we do not need equivalent of effective bureaucracy, preparation that requires a large well-funded bureaucracy we have who have to rebuild civil service funding guarantees a formidable states off existential risk, Collier 21, movement of vulnerable war disease, weak financial system access, attacks from financial system, climate change, vulnerability, citizen with life, financial limitation away from it, causing a deadly pandemic, administrative devices, mitigate vulnerability, organizing emergency, government designed to prepare for uncertain future that might catastrophic disaster, laid out strategy, preparedness, disaster, black ops, terror, attacks, preparedness measures, with stockpile supply, security facilities, governments now prepared to deal with event, even with wide, the bolster preparedness for wide range of future catastrophe, COVID, if that's become the thinner representation range of current issues, notably disaster for climate change, ensure this, neglected dimension with the increasing essential policy system requires the same life from the nuclear attack, administrative readiness, prepare for government operation emergency, vast range of functions, welfare, economic, industrial powers, and admin state. Perceived U.S. weakness caused a global nuclear war means 21. World is edged closer to nuclear war power imbalances. Breathing reshuffle position when has been higher in 80 years ever since the U.S. weakness and lack of capability it could lead to huge miscalc China and had been building its nuclear stockpile. Hypersonic of West States capacity. Nuclear catastrophe is 1,000 times greater than an Armageddon fills nuclear war kills all the plans, solves, and supplies necessary labor to critical federal functions. Carpenter 20 direct government hiring by federal agencies would be essential. Would broaden benefits of federal government, well established personnel system. Congress could fund agencies to expand existing programs, completion and training, component assurance, and jobs need to be done by the CDC staffers who oversee work and monitor progress. That could be across the U.S. federal agencies have shrunk. The CDC, the FDA, Fed could fund the structure and public service to boost supply capacity of agencies. Weak critics pointing to lack of personnel, decision-making agencies relies on lobbyists. G ensures more secure public infrastructure. Fed moves smart policy. Anything but provides jobs to those who need America to transform country. Mark at transform country.
Okay. How's the plan funded and how much do you pay workers?
No means is deficit spending $15 an hour.
Does it include benefits? Is it just the cost of living?
Well,
yeah, it includes benefits. It's not adjusted for cost of living.
Okay. Let's talk about your means card. It says, so the card ends, the card says that the danger lies in the growing perception of incompetence in Biden, combined with the politicized weakening of FBI, CIA, the state, and Defense Department. How do you solve for these things?
Well, we solve for perception of the federal government, specifically federal agencies, regulatory abilities, governmental competency, because we fill the vacancies that are leading to that incompetency.
No, but the people that a job guarantee would hire are not people that you would fill, like the FBI,
Yeah,
CIA.
yeah. The reason those people are perceived as incompetent is because they're not investing in things that will make the U.S.'s like military production efficient. The Smith article.
So hiring more people makes them military efficient?
Yeah, the Smith evidence at the bottom of it talks about how, particularly in regards to China, they perceive this as being weak because we don't have the military production capable of like beating them in a long-term war.
No,
It says that has emboldened them to invade
Smith card
places
is
like
about
Taiwan.
like environmental regulation.
Yeah, scroll to the bottom, at the third to last paragraph, it talks about how a lack of production in the economy because we don't have enough workers and investment in military production has emboldened China to invade like places like
Yeah,
Taiwan.
this is about economic production. How
Yeah.
does the staffing bureaucracy with more people solve this perception?
Well, I mean,
Like,
we
this relies on
don't,
you
we don't
winning your
have to
economy
only
advantage.
staff like federal bureaucracy like in DC. It's more about like building infrastructure across the United States through the jobs guarantee to like enable us to be more military productive. The card talks about how China's invested in things like high-speed rail and that the U.S. is not, which has limited our ability to beat them in like a long-term war and to like build the military here.
What evidence says that the plan would build high-speed rails?
I mean, it's normal means. Smith is talking about things that people should build.
No, like there's a lot of political support against things like opening up homes to
I mean, like
build
Smith
railroads
is
through
Smith
that.
is a solvency advocate. And he's
Yeah,
talking about
yeah,
things
he
that
does
people
not
build.
say we should
I mean,
build high-speed
We
rails.
can fiat either political will. like,
Let's
we
talk about
fiat
the
jobs
union
that-
scenario. The Thoreau evidence is about how unions is one issue that could determine Biden's credibility.
It's like the essential issue.
No,
It
no,
like
it says
multiple
that
times.
it's one thing that Biden campaigned on. That
Yeah,
he
yeah,
only can
yeah.
live up to now.
Biden
But it
has-
also says that there are a lot of other issues failing democracy now. Like obviously unions
No,
are
no,
not
no.
what
Biden-
makes or breaks
the
democracy.
Thar card is insanely good. It says that Biden has staked the credibility on his his Democratic push on the success of unions. There are several lines. It's like unions
Yeah,
are
and
essential
the part
to democracy.
that says that is by Thea Lee, the Deputy Undersecretary of the United States Department of Labor, who
Yeah.
works for Biden. So obviously they're gonna say
Yeah,
unions
it's
are
somebody
good.
who works for Biden who knows exactly what is critical to Biden's pushes. Precisely.
Yeah, and it says this one thing that
And also,
is existing now.
even if there are other factors that are limiting Biden's push, the evidence says that unions are sufficient to like overcome those barriers, and says that it would have great like soft power dividends, is the phrase it uses.
4, 1, 2. Give me a second here, so I can. Okay. Yeah, that's the same as-
They're good.
I can read that stuff. Sorry.
I've gotten it, but I'll wait to open it and send it to them.
For may I have one minute? Yeah.
First off is the states content. 50 states and all relevant to national acquisition implement job guarantee funded by a value-added tax. States have the expertise and funding to implement HG, avoid politics. The fact follows on UN 21 that state government sections remake labor markets by guaranteeing employment. While no federal guarantee looks likely, federal dollars when the states creates an opportunity for states to be models for future federal policy. That generates 1.3 trillion. 0.20 we may enact value-added tax raising 1.3 trillion. Next off is Ukraine is that. There's Republican supported President to the Ukraine. I must get 11 to Johnson from senators of Ukraine will come quickly in the House. GOP senators all like Speaker wanted the successor Johnson told senators next order of business will be Ukraine. Johnson acted Congress not Vienna. Ukraine want Ukraine to win, but we gotta get these things in responsible manner. He said conservatives like what they heard. Job guarantee requires a them takeover and causes GOP outcry policy. And job guarantee is a polarizing policy with critics on both sides of the spectrum. If you concern as a logistics criticisms focus on cost, will it be implemented and all without restructuring landscape? It requires them to take the House and Senate, but GOP is not going to deliver this. Delays in USA linearly increase vote in Russia. Prince 11-17, Ukraine's performance could be impacted. US is by far the Ukraine's largest supplier each week that passes the ability to give Ukraine tools to defend and make advances that harder Ukraine is struggling to drive off Russian forces and failure of the US to come through with aid. What severely shake the coalition supporting Ukraine and voted Putin World War III thesis in 23 US must pursue peace through straight isolation is with failure to resist Hitler's recited World War II, which will not be to seize Ukraine to help Ukraine prevail. We can rewrite the narrative of weakness, restore deterrence to China, strike blow against the Russian alliance, stop nuclear arms race, make World War III less likely. Next off, it's a treaties campaign. The United States Senate should ratify the Article 23 of the United Declaration of Human Rights. The United States federal government should expand direct government hiring, pass the Protecting the Right to Organize Act and the Public Service Freedom to Negotiate Act, fund active labor market policies that competes, fed no day, fiscal policy versus tax spending policies that depend on Congress that results in a job guarantee and solves union power, Custom 21, direct work in IHL, as such about the value UN and CSR, acknowledges work as essential. Article 23 DHR obliges states safeguarding right to work, ISCR requires states secure employment policies promote access to labor, requiring states guarantee access to employment, solves unions, shareholders 23 policymakers take active labor, all workers in the union decreases federal level act provides reforms which will strengthen workers' rights to form union and public service agreement negotiate act guarantees public sector workers the right to form union policy changes at federal level are crucial to fair balance of power to promote rewrite to union representation then collective bargaining. AMLP creates solves better ruling 18 the federal government funds AMLP don't match people job opportunities for child care is pursue high employment with success. They don't truly eliminate all unemployment. There's semantical distinction. The idea of thousands of administrations will successfully employ labor and skills durations it's impossible top genius business geniuses will struggle to run that. Next off is inflation is out. The latest consumer report shows everything inflation is down. 11-14 inflation heading towards permanent levels without rate hikes. 3 days tamed report on prices showed broad easing of cost of goods. Prices of 3.2 in response since June, excluding volatile food and energy. Core officials 0.3 economists try quarter on prices of 20% inflation's future. October's reminder figures make the most likely next week to rates. JG causes rampant inflation. Brunig 18 most change. Advocacy claimed that continuing employee budget numbers with inflation and competition and good of private wages. The guarantee would function as a floor, increasing the bargaining position for per employees. Trucker employees would have to offer a job at least as good as JG will lure workers out of their private jobs through superior compensation, including wage inflation. Nurses quit their jobs to work at JG, upward wage pressure on nursing inflation. Escalates global hotspots extinction. Julius 22. And recently the chaotic administration of the economic invasion spreads to Russia and China weaknesses and models. Russia, depending on experts, China's growth is staggering. Wants to face the challenges including destabilizing threats from populist parties, shaken by pandemic incursions and military private priority of global alliances with various means. Inflation conscious no language of the economics reflects complexity of interconnected world and shifts in great power every stagnation. One, the JG will be an impossible task again, it will exacerbate inefficiency, make stagnation inevitable, early team finding work for tens of millions will be formidable, finding productive work, giving the individual skills in a given locality in a timely manner. It will be staggeringly difficult, possible at all costs of daunting, designing, staffing, and managing a program of 17 million with an untold number of administrators, managers, and employers would be the largest experiment in organizational efficiency in history too. Oppenheimer's writing about 4 forces, not just stagnation, and he says it's stumped by laundry list, but they cannot even solve secular stagnation. Oppenheimer also thinks structural factors like aging, accelerating technology, and global populism make slow growth impossible to overcome insert realities. 3. It's totally secular stagnation is misunderstood and inevitable due to demographics. Current of stagnation, non-inclusive because stagnation amount 3 when its population shrinking is less even likely comes to 5. 4. OA and COVID and every other recession comes. 5. Every theory of economic growth is proven in 2015. Economic stresses associated with conciliatory policies drawing on 109 diet 67 which terminated robberies or crisis likely to terminate during downturns. Crisis lead to austerity practices which incent leaders to cut defense crisis encourage strategic reassessment leads now play the seriousness of arrival. Crisis provoke third prioritization economic crisis increase benefits from the cooperation leaders seek aid, trade, and investment. Workers. 1. Oppenheimer takes out the democracy scenario. It's inevitable globally due to non-union causes. Insert reality. 2. No, generally, unions are not key. Other things like gerrymandering and voter suppression and abortion outweigh. 3. The only card that does say it is a rhetorical quote given in the media from the Undersecretary of the DOL, not an actual prescriptive statement. Insert reality. 4. No, generally, the broad authoritarianism or the BRA is dumped via current expansion. And what Tiger 21. China does export model Xi has been considered original emergence of authoritarian new tech made feasible. China can export tech which favors authoritarian regimes, but technical disorder sampled by given liberal Western countries, Sweden, Norway. Israel, there's a similar ratio of cameras on the streets of London compared with Beijing. 5. Belfield is a laundry list, reject it because it's unwarranted and it's not existential. 6. There are only 2 potential scenarios. War is cherry picked and cannot control for compounders. 50. 19. No consensus on the outcomes of scholars can run huge amounts of it over evidence is weak support for democratic pieces, weak studies and unfound correlation. There are more powerful explanations. Civil war is just unlikely and democratizations are unpredictable and process is increasing. Civil war helping countries democratize would be dangerous. Democracies benefits no extent to limits of non-democratic systems. Other explanations are more powerful to explain the expected benefits. 7. Public goods has not an impact. Democracies are terrible, especially in the US. 18. Governments are inflexible in addressing climate as well as pollution, body, nuclear waste, service of financial insecurity, while inequality, debt, migration, and terror citizens are frustrated and poor performances dominated by partisans, crowded with rent seekers, detached and unresponsive preferences, fail to translate into policy, for example, gun control. 8. Bureaucracy fails. Merit 19. Bureaucratic performance misguided interferes with CW problems, sacrifice ability to govern to solve problems, failures of politics of bureaucracy interact with the essential characteristics that generate political pathologies reflected. Failure cannot be resolved via reform. 9. Weakness is stumped and about forward. Public coherence. Green. Digitalizing voting perception and incompetence combined with the politicized weakness systems of FBI, CIA, state, and defense crystallizing weakness of meetings with Biden to name it, cause of failure of Afghan withdrawal and defunding of defense, fully politicized communities like the danger for factors holding back has been coherent to US FOPO 9, which is also found to Kumar 1013. US struggle to tackle few funds West Asia, Ukraine, China. Landscape cannot be more challenging in Gaza. Drive to Quagmire. Ministry will be dominated by Asia. Gaza suck onto oxygen to affect the American strategy. 10. They do not get to fiat through this number or our causes because the plan text is super vague. It just has a job guarantee. There's no evidence that normal means would necessarily impact staffing the FBI or the CIA. There some evidence is about generic staffing of low-level jobs. There's no reason why they would expand the FBI. I haven't made it. Want to read more cards on inflation? Okay. Inflation is that deficit spending causes economy to really 20 years. Debt growth continues to grow. Governments increased borrowing is competing funds in capital markets, raise concentration, cost of investment, innovation, and productivity cycle. Reduces growth potential. Which drive down confidence, which acts productivity growth even further. Upstream consequences. Everyone will up the wage ladder will demand higher pay, but not only 19 increased cost of labor waiting lead to higher costs to consumers. There are upstream consequences. Workers 20 now on 25 is the story of serious wage spiral. Stats increase bargaining power, and unions are directly correlated with record inflation. Peak within 14 change will lead to bargaining power of the $10 scenario where wage transfer might occur. Workers engage in strikes and get pay hikes. Lower inflation pressure stuff. That's the kind of policies to do an attack on unions. Rising healthcare costs kill the economy and increases inequality. Simple 18 healthcare costs or crunch budgets of businesses and households. Rising costs will drive kind of negative communication straight home. Budgets impact households and members spending on sectors. Impacts over rates and consumption accounts for 7% of outputs. Ability to afford healthcare can dampen productivity. 7%
As long as you're, are you gonna press start?
Yeah.
Okay. Status of the off.
Status quo is a logical option.
Treaties counterplan are planks kickable.
Yes.
Okay. The Fed evidence just says that the Fed is not involved in fiscal policy and is trying to draw a line between fiscal policy and monetary policy. Given that distinction, it says that Congress is involved in fiscal policy, whereas the Fed is involved in monetary policy. Where do you think it says the courts can't be involved in fiscal policy?
Well, our argument is that the counterplan does not do that.
Okay, I mean, sure, that's fine. It results in a jobs guarantee and solves union power. Does it result in a jobs guarantee in the U.S. implemented by Congress?
The second thing is that the evidence we've got just says that fiscal policy are policies and decisions determined by Congress.
Yeah,
it's not just in.
That can be true, while also fiscal policy can also be determined by the courts, right?
Yeah,
like it doesn't say it can't be the courts.
Like we do have 2 NC cards that say that.
But like as of now, it does not
exclude
exclude the courts.
Well, the card does say Congress is the one that.
Wait, the counterplan is in court. I'm not sure why that matters.
Wait, okay. The United States Senate should wait, what's the point of this card then? Isn't that part of Congress?
Yeah, but you have to be both branches. Spending bills must be authorized by both branches.
Okay, sure, so this picks out of the executive?
Yeah, it's not a fiscal policy.
Picks out of the House.
The House.
Okay, got you. jobs guarantee, how does the Senate finance it if the House isn't involved?
Nothing? Wait, say that again?
Like the House has to like be involved.
That's a result of the plan. We don't fiat a job guarantee, but
Wait, so the counterplan has the Senate say they want a jobs guarantee,
no,
and then the
all
House
the
does it.
what the counterplan does is it ratifies Article 23 of the UDHR. That is not a job guarantee. That is not.
And then that
fiscal
causes the
restriction.
U.S. Congress to implement a jobs guarantee.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, got you. The inflation dissad, what the like healthcare cards you read, what do you think the internal link is between like increasing nursing costs and inflation writ large?
The 1NC Bruneck evidence is specifically about nursing jobs in the job guarantee and how a lot of nurses will quit their jobs. And
What
work
evidence
in
have you read that
hospitals.
says that like the jobs guarantee would provide nursing jobs?
This is literally about the job
Like
guarantee.
this is
It says
one.
about
It's talking about
job
one. It's
guarantee
like
will be
if
a
the jobs
worker's-
guarantee provided nursing jobs, nurses might leave their jobs.
No, first of all,
Where have you read evidence that
it's
says?
about if the job guarantee provides any jobs, nurses leave their jobs. Because right now they're not paid enough, they think they work too long hours.
Do you think nurses are paid less than $15 an hour?
But they'd rather work less hours, and they'd rather have a
Well, then why aren't they
nice
working?
job
Why aren't they
and-
working less
like-
hours now and just quitting their jobs as nurses and working at like McDonald's?
Because according to your 1AC argument, they can't find other jobs.
That's not.
And also,
1C, right?
McDonald's
That's
pays half of $15 an hour. It's like $7.25.
That's fine.
Like we were in the hospital for a while.
Ukraine decide is
The nurses
is
out
this
there
is this
with
a
that.
Johnson PC decide?
It's not about PC. It's just about. It is about Johnson, but it's not about PC.
Bipartisanship.
Well, like more specifically, just about House Republicans and how they're on board with Johnson now, but they won't be after that.
Alright, 10. Alright, it's 9:21 it says.
Heavily jealous right
Yeah, I'm not gonna eat that shit sandwich.
Dude, that thing was so small. It wouldn't
Round
give you
4,
seconds.
I cannot think straight, I was so hungry.
Same.
It was bad. I felt like I was gonna fall.
Okay. Zero.
Advantage 1, stagnation. Advantage 2, workers. States. Treaties. The inflation is at. And then the Ukraine is at. Okay. Then so we all good.
Yeah.
One is when not impossible to find work. The Work Progress Administration proves it. It's pretty easy, but the Department of Labor will solve any reasons why it's insufficient. That's the 1AC Carver evidence. 1AC2, no rehiring. The four forces are not. They don't trigger a collapse of primacy, which is the Keynesian language says that secular stagnation. The trigger of collapse of primacy. What our impact is 1AC3, not structural factors. This the part of Oppenheimer talking about is straw person. Someone else's argument, not Oppenheimer's argument itself. Regardless, Dante's evidence says that those factors are not. Those factors are not preventing growth from occurring, which is 1AC4. The Dante's evidence is very specific. It says that those demographic factors are not actually an issue because people over the age of 65 are actually increasing labor force participation. 1AC5 owing could be not thought because they're impacted by prolonged stagnation, not about singular recessions. There's also about relative decline, which is what our impact is clearly. This is not about collapse of primacy, just about economic depression causing wars between countries, which it means it's not responsive. Advantage 2. 1 and 2 with the operator reality doesn't as uniqueness for us because it says democracy is declining now, which is what we agree with. 1 and 2 other issues are not odd cause because of the 1 and 3 evidence is very clear that units of the came to link to Biden's perception and about a democratic modeling globally. 1 and 3 the evidence is sure that the evidence is from a person who works in the Department of Labor. That doesn't mean they're biased. It means they know what's actually happening. Most evidence cites empirics and says the unions work with unions work internationally. 1 and 4 yes impacted democracy. The BRI being a BRI thought is after uniqueness because the BRI is increasing now only the plan can solve it by forwarding units. Belfield laundry list does have warrants. It says that those countries are more cooperative respond to extra rents and a lock-in technology. The DPD card is not responsible because of a scenario not about war between democracies, about war as a result of totalitarian dictators. One of the public goods card is not responsive to cooperation over extra rents and disvalue of those countries providing goods within their own state. 1 to see 7 this evidence is not responsive to it just as reform fails, but not assume staffing, which are 1 to see Smith evidence is the key internal link to revitalizing the bureaucracy. The weakness is not thumb. These are the all causes are all uniqueness for us. And Smith evidence the thumb is all uniqueness for us. All causes are wrong. Because Smith evidence says that the plan is sufficient to solve the no thumb is the weakness again is unique for us. We can solve them because we found the jobs are and in the bureaucracy or in military production, which definitely solves states. First, states solve none of the bureaucracy scenario. It's descriptive of federal programs that being understaffed. Explicitly says the federal level is the problem. That's the 1 AC Smith evidence, especially in the context of our impacts about military production and disaster response. Both are federally run. 2 permanent bell shields and evident politics. Biden makes states take the blame. No follow on politics. The link disproves it, which will contest. 3 states fail fiscally. They cannot print money. Revenue constraints means only effect back the plan during session when the plan requires the most funding. That's the carbon evidence B is capture. States are prone to it. Things that change state implementation. That's the 1 AC carbon evidence. Condo is a voter and dispo solves 1 straight rates maximize in-depth 3 to 2 fairness. African media law is ever action 3 concentrations. Brent best Sweezy answers 4 uniform 50 state Fiata's voters short solidation room strategy by rating debates and evolution rates of bond and funding concern eliminates logical decision making. Nobody can decide between the USFG and uniform state action. Reject the team, reject the argument, distance how theory, and enforce an unreasonable time invested 5 permanent economy rule means involves local implementation. 6 states cannot solve a democratic signaling. Biden not states must reclaim the narrative as a pro-union leader to push norms globally. That's the third evidence. 7 the VAT fails. Garbage 22. Administrative nightmare of the VAT political would be enormous. And we're harmonizing this percent regard harmonize all states do not want to harmonize goods online. They're going to be a nightmare. Treaties. First, permutation to growth shields link to the decide 2 permanent economy ratifying a functionally guaranteeing a job. If it's not, it solves nothing. Should refer to bureaucratic. Should look at the future because possible future events. 3 playing 1 gets watered down if the politics link is true. State action does not ensure House compliance, which is key to funding the plan, which I impacted not on the state's economy to war. The second economy fails. Private job creation fails. The cost of financial instability with the plan solves for 18. Even if progress started to be encouraged to job is given possible 18 that private and will always be the policy opens to remove the people who are not sufficient with inflation of financial stability goes down goes just a real minute is a ELR that also answers the ALMP plan can't solve Donda says the low wage is the largest impediment to higher labor force participation rates, labor production inevitably fail only the JD solves that's the 1 CFE's evidence and the 2 CFE's 23. Even where labor production nationwide firms engagements about arbitrages to curb benefits and regulatory waivers from states firms and capital fight to communities discourage worker ordinance several labor centers only as strong as ability sits on the government one essential like polar combines with that for challenging interest areas indeed with a directly challengeable predominance outside average numbers and they combine our groups with a debate by design by a credible quote their PROACT fails AFP 21. PROACT will be disaster for reward for somebody independent contract among claim 9 classified get better scheduled benefits and contracts not the case of contractors and a flexible range of similar markets and failed also the columns AB 5 increased labor costs and employees left and the dust 5 the government cannot solve any of the bureaucracy advantage because it's not hire workers for the federal government which means it can't solve any of that 4 links and a politics it is still an expansion of the state and their links are not just about a jobs guarantee B is econ the more the economy solves employment the full employment the more it links to this and there's zero coherent explanation why the economy doesn't link to it. Inflation. First, it is out of control, meaning 11-12. Fed plays close to America's faith, the virtual return to normal long expectation whereas the 3.2%. Fed don't expect 2% until 2026. The one I think that would make the Fed quake would be worse than the expectation that consumers feel inflation agree on what got tagged by raising rates settle absolutely whack. The survey is one of the most closely watched markets inflation is insufficient to bring inflation down. That's a result of factors unrelated to wages. There's zero uniqueness for the disaster storm 23. Empirical averages increase in overwhelming caused by a markup 7 driver inflation energy inputs of bad outcome is not wage price power. The wages have limited influence on inflation over the past 2 years. Out on profit inflation has become so solid it is no longer possible. Blaming demand is not hold water nor effective prices on majority have also demand of course not increase. It did not cause inflation demand. Instead demand increased for wages 10%. Turn the plan prevents all inflationary and inflationary cycles by creating a price anchor. Thereafter does not assume the current volatile Naira approach. That's the one to see inside at zero risk of a link. A is macroeconomics. Economies operating in a demand deficit, meaning there's only risk of demand catching up to survive their everlasting bias antiquated models. That's the one to see storm evidence that disproves raising prices. Firms will increase utilization of existing production facility, not jack up prices. That's the one to see inside evidence per evidence is their evidence assumes JG in a vacuum, not a real macroeconomic economic results of Plan B is productivity growth. The plan stimulates preventing demand pull inflation. 1 is wage increases, and they prevent inflation while increasing overall growth. That's the one you see. Storm evidence. 2 is training. The JD lowers hiring costs of the private sector, allowing companies to increase production to match demand. That's the one you see. N7 is C is fixed wage, avoids the price spiral. That's the N7 is a one-time jump, is not inflation. 18. Inflationary effects of $50 and not one-time increase on inflation model plans negligible. The inflationary impact of the program that answers all the words about unions because they can only increase the wage to $15. 15 is not inflationary. It's just a one-time jump. No deficit enabling ways. Employment is already paid for by other programs that have to eliminate rate. 18. Estimates are by considered regarding savings of programs if include all benefits, reduction, property, indebtedness, crime, incarceration, packet, but federal light spots, but already paid for significant spending. Would decline tax revenues would rise. B. The plan generates additional tax revenues. C. Non-unique or trillions of dollars in debt. There's no reason why the plan causes inflation from it. D. Bureaucracy. The plan reinvests in it, saying they're going to save the government tons of money from outsourcing. That's the one you see. Smith evidence. The healthcare impact makes negative sense. Nursing costs are unrelated to how much people spend on their healthcare. No impact. Healthcare is not key to the whole economy like the plan is, and inequality does not implicate the case. Julius impact is incoherent. Never says inflation causes war. Just that inflation is one of many factors that influence great powers. Assign the risk of this at to 0 until they read the real impact Ukraine. It won't pass the PC's already depleted. House Law 1140. Congressional is divided lower than rising companies from other parties on the death on the company and both them Republicans alluded to the Congress there's voting no chance of touching it. Pentagon and one reason getting smaller Republicans are hesitant to track. Congress will not approve a power House of conservative hinder passage of bipartisan parties. Israel high party bipartisan majority not being able to solve through by his request. One path is along with the immigration, but it's not clear whether Democrats will compromise with Dems or resist the immigration proposal. Unclear but even a bipartisan deal could pass that House combination referendum. So too much for Ukraine to survive. Tons of numbers on nomination, Saudi, Israel normalization, Israel and Johnson spent all PC on the CR and has done left Mascara at 1118. Johnson inherited a majority in disarray. He's running into the same division. McCarthy was able to tame disrupting the parties and shoveling priorities to super force to abandon his own party scheduled outlook. She appears no better Republicans failed to pass legislation. Conservatives took umbrage at this pending while same committee that led to the hard right of how to ask McCarthy both threaten Johnson's leadership duty. Divide is going to be a bumpy road going forward. He'll sabotage Ukraine dies 11-12. Johnson unveiled 2-tier proposal always funding Ukraine budget. Outdoor Republicans pushing Israel defensive Ukraine pros. Republican have a bill Ukraine unionist opposition drawn fierce criticism both funding equitable crucial funding for Ukraine also partisan proposals. He's reviving Trump. The border walls headed nowhere. Johnson Robles gimmicky GMP. House instead of a spending league is terminally thought no internal Ukraine. Now is not key. The rest of Congress for hundreds of billions of dollars of funding. No reason now is key. Teaching aggressive to be Russian defeat is a myth. Wall 22. No shortest case where aggressive rather defeating out aggression does not pay. Is ignoring less and wars aren't clear. People don't have to lose war. What's bad due to bad luck.
Mark Walt at bad luck. Yeah.
Seems like a lot of the impacts in both of the equities rely on the idea that U.S. primacy is going down. Where have you had evidence that says China is rising now? What have Russia?
Want to see? Well, I don't think all of our impacts rely on primacy. Democracy is about U.S. promotion to democratic norms, which is obviously distinct because it's not about having troops in other countries. And the resolve impact is about U.S. domestic, likely being strong economically. The first advantage, the impact is about economic strong. U.S. means countries relying behind the U.S.
Yeah, but you made this big push about relative decline. Where have you?
Yeah, honestly, Oppenheimer says that China's GDP isn't catching up, and that GDP is. Yeah, it says long term, China's GDP has been increasing. The one that didn't make arguments about how China's GDP isn't increasing. If you make them, we'll read more cards. Oppenheimer says GDP is the greatest predictor of power because countries use GDP to extract and apply power on other countries through economic moves.
Like a lot of these scenarios, it seems like yes, the United States might be getting slightly weaker. How does this result in war?
I mean, Oppenheimer very clearly says that we are on the path to multipolarity because of declining U.S. GDP.
And how does that result in war?
Yeah, well, there's 3 different scenarios Oppenheimer outlines. The first is just deterrence failure. If we transition to a multipolar state, China and Russia especially will be emboldened to invade other countries like Taiwan or further into Europe. The second scenario is security dilemmas. If the world is multipolar, no one knows who is their friend, so they'll escalate security dilemmas, invade countries, and there's
the
also
democracy scenario. So you may win. Unions are key to Biden's democratic campaigning, but how does that translate into other countries? Why does that mean that Biden's able to vote?
Well, I mean, the whole internal link is not about U.S. democracy, unions key to U.S. democracy. It is domestic unions key to Biden's promotion internationally. The Thor evidence talks about.
How does that stop countries like Turkey or Hungary?
Yeah, the Thor evidence talks about countries comparing an authoritarian model with a democratic model, and the thing they look for is the condition of workers.
So your argument is Erdogan will stop being autocratic if he sees that.
Well, it doesn't have to be Erdogan, but we think Erdogan.
What are some countries that would switch?
There are a lot of countries in Africa or Asia that would switch. I mean, we don't need to list.
So these dictators would just give up power because.
Well, it's not necessarily dictators. It's countries that are on the fence between democracy and authoritarianism. I mean, I don't need to list them.
And how do these countries in Africa solve nuclear war?
Well, that it's not about them solving nuclear war. It's that if they became totalitarian, there's more likelihood they would rush to acquire nukes, or if the country already had nukes, like a region other in, well, not only prolific. If they already had nukes from like a country that's not in Africa, they'd be more likely to use it because they're less reliant on information.
There are only 9
than
countries that have nukes, and they're all divided between autocracies and democracies now. Like, which
Well,
ones of those countries?
Okay, sure, but like even if like we don't have, it's like the impact's not only countries that are on the fence. It's also like authoritarian countries. Their public is more likely to support democracy
So
if
like
they
in
see that
China
the
and
U.S.
Russia, they support democracy.
Well, obviously, like not. Well, we don't think like China or Russia will immediately transition to democracy, but like I don't know, countries more on the fence. Like if like
you
France
can't-
was like close to
France?
like transitioning to authoritarianism, for example. Like the what I see evidence is very
Yeah,
clear.
there's like fascist popularity in a bunch of European countries. Yeah, nukes.
Sorry, I'm having trouble finding it. That's how you say that.
Do they still make those small white timers? There's like, did they get?
They gave us this
They gave him, yeah, same marks.
God.
Right.
Email Mahoney, bro. Where'd you find these?
I can't see those. I need.
You know,
like,
I like that one a lot more than I like this one.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, this one's hard to see.
They have keeps in your backpack.
That is
And it's
true.
impossible
so
to
you can like change it.
That's awful on planes.
The advantage channel plan. States. Inflation. Stagnation. And workers.
British Counterfeit states, inflation, stagnation, workers.
Correct. Alright, anyone not ready?
Yeah, give me 1 second.
Perm to both links in that because it includes the House. Perm to the company is severance because it picked out of the House. They dropped the Fed evidence that says that to be comparable to must include the House. They read a card about should, but the company never fiat to pay on some by result, forcing us to win CS. So permanent company severance competition just solely about mandates with 13 every action. That's what affect us with the price, able to create a weather. Cost effect output even a cost or unfathomable should cross action be mandated, even if uncertain power to do with should, such as encourage under mandatory would disagree no matter how phrase it didn't should. They say that the company gets watered down. They dropped the 1 Costello evidence that says that the treaty would have a maximum effect and that would force America to comply, which means the House cannot water it down. The rate evidence is wrong because the answer is the wrong argument. Our plank is about active labor market policies, which is about how there are currently enough job openings now, and that the necessary way to solve for a lack of demand or production is to match up workers to those job openings. Ray assumes creating new jobs, which the company does not do. They say only a job guarantee solves unions. These things link to the act more because it's about how corporations will move offshore, which obviously a job guarantee would cause, but the company does not link because the evidence assumes it and says that the Pro Act bill would be better for unions and the economy. They read a card about Pro Act is wrong. There's no impact to it because it's about harming employers, but it definitively solves the link about unions. They've also dropped the Bureaucratic evidence, which is more recent and assumes new changes to the bill that would solve for employer uncertainty. They say it doesn't solve bureaucracy, but they dropped the plank that expands direct hiring of the government to agencies, which directly solves this is the links in that method. But we're only Senate, which solves the Inflation Act. States. Conceded permits a test of competition theory is the reason to reject the argument, not the team, because not going for a software offense. Condo is good, we get whatever we do. 1, negative flexibility topics no longer have inherent controversies. Or 2, to patients to limit the topic by counterplans as functional limits exacerbated by natural incentive. The sandbag the best offense into 2AC. 2nd, reasonability. The status quo should always be a logical option. Arbitrary and unpredictable rules are worse than no rules. Punishment should fit the crime, make the contents dispositional. Defense. 1, diminishing marginal utility, adding more accuracy, peaks and value. 2, skewing contradictions, inevitable. T, this has speed handling framework critiques. This both sucks because there's no community consensus and process confidence and added pigs for its firms. Inflation. Inflation outweighs sugar scarce resources that cause global effects as Julius. They conceded that turns off the case because it makes response to climate change, disease, democracy, Russia, and China, as well as the economy impossible. It has the largest internal link to the economy. Shoka 23, which price power first ways to move that compresses price power hurts profit margins, breaks pull. Back on lending, that kills the economy, turns bureaucracy, swung 18, increased government spending, or crowded investment in infrastructure by the public and private sectors. They say inflation high now. First is CPI. New report on Tuesday shows it's at its lowest. Second is Fed statements. Inflation is low enough that they said the most likely next action is cutting rates as rigorous. Soft landing now. Aspen 1160 inflation falling and output growing. Data shows soft landing. Retail rose stronger than expectations. CPI eased better than expectation of no challenge resiliency of the consumer surprise analyst America. Target ING said data features soft landing narrative. No inflation now. The best data sets. Goldman Sachs 1114 economy defined recession fears the soft landing stronger than GDP growth. 50% happiest blows from touching the wall behind us. 50% of probably recession. Inflation falling struggling from peak and begins financial rebalancing. Rental labor markets wage growth has fallen to a sustainable pace. They should push PC to 2.4, GDP to 1.8, easily beating expectation. Third is consumers. Their consumption is high now. Leonhard 1117 consumer account for 70% U.S. economy. Account GDP strong, healthy, household finance, sustainable market housing. What consumers have plenty of time for recession. Keep the flow for some time. 4, labor force and job openings are increasing. Leonhard 1117 healthy labor market job force spending growth more than 3 times level needed to gain economic even job still elevated wage. Gives our operating inflation impact on spending, falling birth rates. Immigration baby boomers tight employment will persist. Household finances wealth grew by risk of homeownership, resting on stock market of net worth. Fine framing issue. Even after which that recession is coming, it will be short and mild without an impact. Rule 23. Economists who do expect a recession note the impact will be modest, resulting in lower unemployment that help Americans find positions quickly after cuts a short mild recession and process for the soft landing have been improved. They say it's not about wages, but the cards above prove that the wage effect on inflation is likely and that currently it's muted, but the plan could trigger. They've dropped the healthcare leak. The 2AC just said that there was not a war, but they considered the Bruneck evidence that says that the plan would directly trade off with healthcare costs, and the Sandberg evidence and that's the impact of their internal link to this healthcare stuff that says that healthcare costs are the biggest spender of Americans, the biggest cause of inflation. You do not allow new 1AR responses because the 2AC chose not to read cards here, and 2AC consensus determines block choices. This outweighs any of the link turn stuff because of a couple of reasons. First is that Ray is bad. He's writing about 2018, so he does not assume the inflationary effect now, which is on the brink. Second is that he's a hack. Ray is an author who always writes about job guarantee, but does not cite real statistics. Third is unemployment is at an all-time low. You cannot produce more supply when everyone's already employed. Fourth is time frame. The leak is faster than the leak rate. 18 given the size will be necessary to face it over several years. Five is that they do not create the right jobs. They create infrastructure or bureaucracy jobs, which are not goods that alleviate supply decline. So there's no way that reduces healthcare costs. Stagnation. Secular stagnation is inevitable and harmless. The slow growth app talks about is purely about elderly people demanding less, producing less, which is about a long-term trend that it does not get to an impact, which does not prove that America is declining relative to other countries, because Krugman analyzes how this applies to all countries, because all countries have Asian populations, especially China. You should prefer this evidence because he's a distinguished professor of economics. It's structural and harmless. For 20 GDP slowdown appears troubling. It's been 9 years since 4% slowdown to previous financial crisis, but is it something we can respond to the impact as compared to growth? Workers' age, the track down growth disrupted was driven by expanding college goods became more efficient. Their slowdown is a consequence of success. They say it's about relative decline, but China can never surpass the United States. Newman 821 economists estimate China's economy to overtake America's, that they may never come to the economy hit the scales well before its superpower status is growing now. Like in China to Japan in the 90s, China may never turn the ranks of advanced economies. China faces structural and cyclical problems including declining population. China relied on debt bureaucracy, which has produced collapse unlike the Lehman Brothers movement, and unemployment as high as 46 and under. One Russian trigger sell-offs, the slowdown can be chronic. There's no risk of any other adversaries triggering conflict with America because Russia is losing to its third world country of Ukraine, and Iran and North Korea obviously are no threat to the United States. Workers. The democracy scenario is zero, cross-X shredded it. Nobody goes nuclear, there's no follow-on in countries that matter or have nuclear weapons. Our impacts are just categorically bigger. There's also no internal link. First is unions are not key. Zero evidence is comparative to suggest that other countries' perception of US democracy are solely tied to unions, especially given that the absent internal link to unions themselves is small. Even if an FJG boosts unions in the long term, that does not create the translation of rhetoric into action that Thoreau and Oppenheimer described. That's especially true given their deficits to campaign, because no one is the evidence describes the perception of a federal job guarantee. Second is the only internal link premised on worker welfare is the Chinese economic model. The Xi has already expanded the Belt and Road Initiative, so it's stumped, but countries rejected it for other reasons unrelated to US worker rights credibility, i.e. the perception of economic viability, which proves that the plan is not key. That's Ortega evidence. Third is unions signal the opposite of democracy. Instead, they signal right-wing populism and signal protectionism and nativism. Union leaders face upon right-wing ideologues, 6 million of their voters, those political assets public law show their true colors by acting anti-worker laws, 50% union members. In fact, some millions supported by Conrad Cruz were Walker unions. Unions heated screens from Trippi's right, Marine, Le Pen's Orban workers have radicalized that its nationalist protectionist database, us which is easier to sell of working class constitution, new concepts, inoculate people versus populism. Even if they win the full weight of their internal leaders, there's no impact. Geopolitical China's challenging status, but none of the challenges as existential basis not seeking to limit US power, wealth, or influence, or tyrannical democracy, capitalism. It seeks a multipolar world in which China is the leader. Its interest of the appearance governing model is accepted. The bureaucracy scenario sucks. First is that political capture guarantees poor bureaucratic action. They've dropped the 1C evidence that indicates that no matter how many people they staff the bureaucracy, it does not matter because those bureaucracies will not enforce those regulations because companies just buy off all of their workers. Second is that the plan only hires. The Collier evidence says that democracy, executive flexibility, and executive controls are key, which plan does not increase into the reality. And the 1AC Smith evidence in the launch list, a list about causes about things how judicial review, as well as a lack of spending on military are reasons for why countries perceive a lack of resolve, not because of a lack of hiring.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Second part of the counterplan, who does it? Is it just the Senate? The text is USFG.
Yeah, the second part is Congress, but the link is specific to job guarantee.
So the link is just like they won't get mad at a jobs guarantee, or they will get mad at a jobs guarantee, but not at the PRO Act, the other unions act, active labor market policies, and like radically increasing the size of the government. That seems absolutely ridiculous.
Well,
like, how does it not link?
The link cards we read is specific about the perception of job guarantee
Yeah.
creates. And the reason why a job guarantee is distinct is because it's seen as a socialist policy that drastically
Yeah, okay,
expands.
I understand the link. But okay, whatever. The solvency, when does the House follow on to fund the jobs guarantee after you like ratify the treaty?
Maybe in like a month.
A month?
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. The active labor market policy, how does it solve like automatic stabilization of the economy?
So it would always match workers to job openings. Our evidence says that structurally there are always more employers demanding workers than there are workers.
Okay, does that part of the counterplan get funded by anything? Like, is it giving the private sector any money? Or is it just matching workers to jobs?
It's just matching workers to jobs.
Okay. Inflation is sad. You talked about like the deterrence case analysis. Why does inflation prevent those responses?
Prevent which one?
The like in climate change. I read the one in CF and I don't think it says it.
Yeah, the Julius evidence says that inflation eats away at the real value of America's budget, and there are reasons why
So
the government wouldn't be able to effectively solve for it.
it's like inflation means we can't spend more money from the government to solve
Well,
climate
the amount of
change.
money that we spend is worth less, so that they cannot solve climate change.
Well, yeah. So the scenario is just domestic inflation, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Like, how does that prevent us responding to like Russia and China?
Because it also eats away at the real value of the military
Okay. Okay.
budget.
Yeah. Link debate. Actually, I want to talk about the healthcare scenario. The Brunig evidence in the 1 and C says it would cause nurses to leave their jobs. I'm confused how that drives up healthcare costs.
The Sanborn evidence ties it together. It says that nursing is a huge part of consumer spending, and healthcare is
Right, so-
a huge part of inflation.
Yeah. If the nurses leave their jobs, though, why would that drive up spending?
Because
Wouldn't
it
they just be
requires-
replaced by someone who?
It requires
they would pay the
hospitals to
same
pay a lot
amount?
more for this basic service in healthcare.
So-
which
oh,
drives
so
up
this
the
is
amount-
like-
So it drives up the amount that hospitals pay for
Right,
workers,
yeah.
and they pass that cost on to consumers.
Okay, like hospitals paying for workers. Like, why does that cause like inequality or like more deficit spending by the government? Like what the
Because
impact
of things
that.
like Medicare, because of government social programs, the government would have to.
I'm missing the connection between like hospital costs and Medicare costs.
Well, the government pays for healthcare costs to Part D of Medicare, or Part A of Medicare.
Okay.
Ukraine. We'll think a bit about we put again in order to. Yeah. That was 2 seconds. Vantage 2 first. Okay. Second. Okay. Ukraine. Vantage 2.
I'm good.
Alright.
Workers Ukraine.
No.
Oh, Ukraine workers.
Yeah.
Okay.
Success in Ukraine stops world with it prevents deterrence failures and stops the global nuclear arms race from escalating into rampant wars of aggression. That's decent. It's qualitatively more likely because it's the only hot war that's ongoing now. Turns the whole case. The entire app is based on primacy or power projection or U.S. leadership. Ukraine is a much stronger and turning stagnation outcome. 23, the economic impact is reverberating worldwide and impeding recovery war. Elevated energy prices exacerbate food shortages, repercussions of health, and development of developing nations. The conflict is made driver slowdown. Turns workers, collapses democracy, and strong U.S. state. McFall 3 days ago. If Putin succeeds, Putin will be important. Victory pursued war space order established taboo of annexation returns to Hobbesian world. Drag into war with other powers, major implications for democracy, China, Russia, Iran, and Norco. Victory chuck of the win to reverse erosion, momentum or growth. They say non-unique. 1, it's linear. This is their only carded argument, so as long as we beat uniqueness, you vote negative. It's triodynamic. The details of the package may be uncertain, but the evidence does not rise to the threshold of saying 8 is impossible. The leak was conceded, which means any risk of uniqueness outweighs. 2, it's unique now. The sentence by partisan immigration reform will happen. The only question is the House, which Johnson has control of now. That's not this. That's the mascara evidence. 3, Ukrainian passes by the end of the year. Johnson's on board. The Noblest 4 hours ago. Leaders are aiming to pass Ukrainian immigration by the end of the year, putting multiple people involved in the Senate. There's room for bipartisan negotiation process. Care about approving into Ukraine. If Johnson can do spending goes past Ukraine with border security, that makes it difficult for senators to vote against it. Johnson expects the Senate to ask first. The Speaker wants response on Ukraine. 4, Johnson's pushing Ukraine, and Republicans are enthusiastic. Let's go to 11. 10, Johnson is suggesting the U.S. in Ukraine ideas but enthusiastic on the Republican side. Johnson signaled openness allowing Ukrainian as encouraging use for supporters. They say thumpers. Ukraine is top of docket. Pravda's 11-17. Both parties plan to work on the coming days on Ukraine, in which they vote on and negotiate over the next week. They say Johnson's PC is low now. 1, this was answered above. The evidence is not specific to Ukraine. 2, Johnson is in waning honeymoon phase with Farson 11-16. The lines are going to say on his read of Johnson until Tuesday wasn't clear Johnson had an exchange or was happy to make it happen. Luther caucus voted for the bill. The new speaker is in a honeymoon phase. No one wants an embarrassing speaker fight that far right views of kinship with Johnson. They say Johnson sabotages Ukraine. The card is about tying border reform to Ukraine, but that'll be resolved. 1. Aid and immigration will be resolved with Hokkaido. Mario 1160 top priority Senate specified aid for Ukraine. Senate kept talking and continuing over breakthrough agree on change. Agreement by things to get a momentum to a new sense of life. 2. Political convergence secures Ukraine tied with border security. Less 1170 voters give Biden 4 marks for immigration campaigners. Attack Trump's policy is going to have to talk border. Wants aid for Ukraine and Republicans demand security. The White House signaled that deal is necessary. Bill has the other center offering prices opportunity unlocks aid, passes immigration, and gets credit for the big bipartisan deal. They say the link, they say no spending link. They dropped the job guarantee link. I'm not reading new cards, it's 100% job guarantee link. Republicans have staked their campaign on painting them as socialists. They would go nuts if Johnson let them pass $1 trillion centrally planned communist jobs for all program. No chance they support Johnson or Ukraine after they go batshit. That's partisan. But the spending numbers will concede that takes out the links and that benefit on the comp plan because it proves that the spending components of the plan, the comp plan do not link in politics, but the job guarantee does. They say no to the link. It's uncarded. Our evidence from 2 days ago says Ukraine's running out of aid now, which causes Russia to act aggressively. I'm not reading new cards here. They say no impact defense. 1. This was marked early. 2. Funding Ukraine directly prevents US first one review 10-12. Immediate assistance prevents escalation US involvement. 8. It's a powerful deterrent to US future Russian victory. Could encourage future territorial ambitions leading up to target NATO. This could lead to direct US-Russian conflict and increase possibility bottom line funding now. So strategic investment ammunition, pleading guns and caps and funding. Delaying essential military supplies as Russia prepares for winter offensive. Advantage 2. No bureaucracy impact. Issues with bureaucracy is structural and inevitable due to political capture for lack of bureaucratic bureaucracy does not get to conflict. That's fair because it's done for decades. 2. Bureaucratic pathologies decimate governance. Mirror 19 system considers transfer of bureaucracy policy failures in legislatures, courts, executive bureaucracy must operate despite of multiple outcomes. Elected officials in the US really do in political coup responsiveness its inherent systems fragments power via itself and it furthers via some national means bureaucracy is rarely given sufficient power on autonomy effectively implement policy and entities make different demands as its interest groups produce contested implementation. Elections place policies in multiple principles means conflict negotiating ambiguity. Bureaucracies need to respond to all and are expected to thinly. Bureaucracies will do too much with too little. Courts are reaching they cannot self-resolve. And the impact is dumped for years of Biden's and Trump's failures. That means card cites a lack of military spending failures in Afghanistan, Biden's old age and politicization of the FBI and CIA that hiring does not solve. Kumar proves Biden's foreign policy blunders weak, lack of resolve inevitable, that's Kumar. And resolve is dead in the water. Ashford 1027. Worry about global reaction, China, inclusive launch partner in Europe, and means see opportunity as stress, dangerous, to Biden's policy, undermining perception of resolve and withdrawal from Afghanistan, Ukraine, appeasement of Iran, and willingness to increase defense spending to China, dictators assessing and getting away with murder. We cannot make a credible threat. Suspect Washington won't follow through. Go back to politics. Russia's lost would have voted China, U-10 votes, assistance influences China's calculus inconsistency, support risks of voting China for ambitions in Taiwan, and more uniqueness cards. Senate Democrats will concede to border security reforms in exchange for Ukraine vote in 11th. 3 Senate Democrats facing re-election are open to supporting immigration reforms as part of 8.
921.
Open to supporting immigration reforms as part of 8.
stagnation, workers, advantage counter plan, inflation disag, Ukraine.
So Ukraine last.
Yeah.
Everybody good?
Okay, okay.
No aging, all causes of the job done. The participation for 65 and over is increasing. China does surpass us. 1. Oppenheimer says that they're outspending us in the military. 2. China's growth is far outpacing the US just to 22. U.S. share of global GDP is climbed 50% to 40%. China's possesses economy growing 3 times faster. Just protecting Chinese dominance. Northern nation provide infrastructure. The only game in town the US has little to show for it. They consider the impact it causes deterrence failure, security dilemmas, and proliferation, which also causes nuclear war. Works advantage. There are enough people for regulations there because there are vacancies in the federal government now that Jonathan Smith evidence, which says that they have enough people to build military equipment and to build high-speed rail. It also solves regulatory inefficiency because we increase the bureaucracy, which is able to streamline that process. All causes in Smith, but the only one is judicial review. That is an alternative to hiring, which is exactly what the plan does. Political capture. 1, the strength is about perception. Whether we have a large federal bureaucracy is not necessarily contingent on whether it's effective, but whether it's perceived as effective by adversaries. It's enough for the strength scenario, but also it's enough to solve climate. It's enough to solve climate change because we implement enough people to implement those regulations. And 2, it is linearly better than the status quo, which guarantees climate change being ineffective. Means that we turn the inflation stuff on the inflation the climate stuff on the inflation discount before they turn the case. Permanent growth kills the counter plan. Looks like Senate mandated jobs guarantee and supplemental policies, so avoid links to the politics because the House is forced to comply. If you buy the perm links, the counter plan links just as much. First, the second set of planks obviously links and has the House adopt a slew of near socialist policies and radically expand the government. If it doesn't do that, it cancels the case. Secondly, the first plank still links because the House would implement the policy in a month. They say the House will be forced. That proves the perm does not link. No judge cake forces 2AR to answer multiple worlds, which is impossible. Counter plan can't solve. Enshrining a right to employment doesn't ensure it's fully implemented. We agree. The plan is politically toxic, so the House would neglect funding it. Forcing compliance is warrantless. And backed up with zero cars, it can't solve advantage 1, extend the right evidence. Only the plan provides automatic stabilization. It's administratively impossible to plug and chug people into jobs randomly. Also, it's more volatile, which means the secular stagnation is inevitable. Union planks fail. Only an exit option solves. The habits evidence says that monopolistic economies prevent solvency for the counterplan. Inflation discount. Turn's case is warrantless at the top of the 2 and C. The climate impact is wrong. The only internal link is economic strength, which is just begs the question of the link debate. They also conceded that Oppenheimer says that cooperation over climate change is impossible in a world of absolute multipolarity, in a world of multipolarity, which means that the only question is whether or not we link and whether that dissent is unique. It is non-unique. Inflation is high. 1 is Fed numbers is way above the target. It won't come down for at least 2 years. That is according to the Federal Reserve. 2 other causes like markups and energy shocks cause it, and wage-driven inflation is specifically wrong. They only said that the wage effect is large without answering those other all causes. Means inflation is terminally bad, dissatisfied, self-fulfilling. Expectation of inflation drives inflation. Irwin 1113. Society black Americans don't appear to be in comfort, expected to be self-fulfilling. Americans' inflation long term can make only more common because return showed 3.2%, highest since 2011. Goldman Sachs is trying to be optimistic to increase optimism within investors. Toss it out. Expectation of inflation make the Fed's goal impossible. Irwin 1113. People expecting high inflation will be more willing to pay high prices. Expectation when they see higher prices in the future could prevent inflation from continuing to march to the Fed's 2%. Consumer spending high disproves the link, or it makes it sad non-unique. Consumer spending means that aggregate demand is high, which means that either inflation will be high if they're right about the link, or it proves that they're wrong about the link. Same thing with job openings, the link. No demand inflation, there insufficient demand, it is too much supply. Demand can only cause inflation if it outpaces supply. That's Dottis and Storm, dropped in the 2 and C, empiric sort of Kaufman 20, experiences like 1948 will double minimum wage when economy was full employment, didn't see inflation. GG is stabilized where the private sector is booming, folks are transitioning to ECB, injecting demand via wage increases, stimulates private sector productivity, preventing demand pull inflation. First, tech investments, the plan incentivizes them, automating the private sector and net increasing productivity. That's Storm. Second, hiring cost, the plan frees up money that would otherwise be spent on training, allowing production investments. That's in. They only said that that's wrong, but that's not true. The healthcare cost stuff is incoherent. First, nurses are not the entirety of the healthcare industry, means they don't access it. 2, positive effects of the plan offset it, which were dropped above. 3, there's no trade-off. There's a Newton cross-sex. Nurses could quit for lower hours now, but nobody's doing it. Politics does that. Aid will not pass. Both parties are distracted. Nobody will compromise. Packages are getting smaller and smaller. That's Holster. Aid won't pass. Holster. Rule blocks clean bill. Democrats won't negotiate. McKinzer 11-10. Zelensky's word. Republicans are opposed. They are in position to kill any bill. No bill can come on the floor unless it passes with the public vote. Ukraine failed hard assess. Ukraine is not the sport. Johnson voted against. Johnson is marrying Ukraine to border security was rejected by Democrats. White House promising to veto the measure. None of the bickering and infighting bodes well for the passage. Linking funding causes fights doesn't solve them. Pick wrench in 24. Republicans heard to make modification that includes into Ukraine. Republicans drawing lines of the same little consensus among Republicans called repeatedly to send consider the measure separately. Overwhelming support for cannot be said about Ukraine aid. Funding proven lackluster. The issue could become biggest across the aisle in this package. There's no turns case to back to the workers advantage. Sorry. We will explicitly concede that resolve is dead in the water. That takes out the impact of the Ukraine advantage because we will still be seen as weak, even if we're able to protect Ukraine from Russia. It doesn't take out secular stagnation though, because the internal link is economic influence and meddling with GDP, which we still have post-plan. Back to Ukraine dissent. Concession on the workers' advantage takes out turns case. We turn the dissent before they do. There's no democracy. Term we will concede impact events means there is no impact to it. The Johnson stuff is wrong. Ignore Johnson's lies. He's not supporting Ukraine. Padikari 11-15. How Americans trust Johnson after the black votes for Ukraine proposed. Opponents to cover for getting where Republicans don't want Ukraine. On the chopping block, Johnson's GOP can destroy progress. My support. Migrant supporters don't like. He's vetoed 4 of the 5 packages, and that's an F on his Ukraine pork card. The Noble's evidence: 1, it says that he wants results, not that he wants to aid Ukraine, and 2 is it highlighted can't to can, which is obviously unethical and doesn't say that Johnson can support Ukraine.
workers, inflation, secular stagnation.
Correct.
Okay.
Are we all good?
Yes.
Yeah.
The impact is 100%. The impact cost application is irrelevant. Ukraine now spills over into US, NATO, Russia war because Russia acts more aggressively if they win. This goes nuclear. If Russia loses, that makes it impossible for them to expand the war. That's you. So that means that the cross application does not matter because it's not about America's resolve or demonstrated credibility, but it's about a physical beating of Russia in a conflict. Ukraine's victory is the strongest, the fastest, and total diplomacy. Dropped this turns to stagnation card. No new to our answers. You must draw a line from every to our argument from the 1 AR. Ukraine lost encourages China and Russia to act more aggressively and collapses U.S. economic leadership and collapses U.S. bureaucratic signaling. That's Agbabian and the fall. 2 frames. First is turns case outweighs the app internally conceded in the 1 AR. When deciding our aggression, China and other autocracies are not looking at our structural stagnation or our bureaucracy. Rather, they are looking at Ukraine. That's you. Second is time frame, which are faster than structural stagnation or bureaucratic failures or democratic promotion, which takes years and years because Ukraine's running out of aid now. The U evidence indicates that the time frame is on the brink now. They're about to run out of aid, and time frame is the only thing that matters because you must live to fight another day, and they drop the terminal impact. No matter how persuasive the 2 AR is on uniqueness, 3 frames that were dropped. First is any risk of uniqueness outweighs. You know that the link is assured, which means that extinction is inevitable if you vote affirmative. You know turns case is certain, which means the app is 0 and entirely non-unique gets trialed out. Because it conceded a job guarantee is unpopular, it will deck any certainty of the Ukrainian passing because they've also conceded a turns case argument that the lack of Ukraine aid immediately triggers off the app's impacts. You know that if you vote out, they solve none of the case because it directly turns case immediately causes a global nuclear war between the United States and Russia. Since they conceded the rest of this disadvantage, just try to die from the negative because you know extinction is certain, and any risk of uniqueness, even without any defense to the app, is a reasonable negative. Second is none of their evidence is conclusive that aid is 100% impossible. It may be difficult, but certainly not 0, which means that the link determines the direction of uniqueness. Third is recency. Only reread a card from 4 hours ago that says that the Senate will pass Ukraine and tie the border security. Johnson will never support it. They've also dropped the rest of our evidence that's far more recent than theirs, that's from today or yesterday, while their evidence from days ago there's not some new Johnson statements. The 1 AR card, the first card, Johnson can bypass the Hastert rule. He already did with the stopgap bill, which denies this argument. The issue is border security, which we read more recent evidence that says that it will pass, which means that the cooperation and the writers will help the bill pass, not hurt it. The second card is from October. It's far too old. It's also about linking Israel to Ukraine, which has since been delinked, so it does not apply. The card that we read is not miscut. Kevin sent out the paragraph again for reference. The compact conceded premises to capital competition workers. Conceding that resolve is that deletes the bureaucracy impact because the impact is about resolve. The climate change stuff is wrong. First is that the explanation is new, so it's tracking off the flow. Second, there's no terminal impact. Third is that they have not proven how they spill over globally. China and India are much larger on causes. 4 is that's way too slow and our impact turns and is far faster. 5 is they conceded judicial review. They are striking down regulations now, which is the rehighlighting of the Smith evidence, which means that they cannot solve. No matter how many people they hire, the regulations get struck down, so the people cannot enforce those regulations. That's also the Myra evidence, which they dropped. That industrial capture means that they can never regulate innovation. Conceding this impact defense also deletes advantage 1 because it's about the perception of American decline. They conceded too many warrants that says that Biden is a failure now. He's too old. He's failing in foreign policy and things like Israel, Europe, the pullout of Afghanistan, as well as appeasement to Iran. All of these things signal a lack of resolve in the United States and signal retrenchment in the United States, which will trigger their secular stagnation impact. That's what it means. Kumar and Ashford, inflation. There's no straight turn here because the 1 AR did not explain how they increase supply, so they did not decrease inflation, which means that it's not a straight turn argument. It was just link defense, stagnation. They've conceded that secular stagnation is inevitable due to aging globally. That's Krugman. They say that 65 people older are increasing participation now, but they dropped the second part of the 20 explanation, which is that it applies to China and globally. The Krugman, as well as Vorak evidence about how there's a global aging crisis and people across the globe are getting older now, which means that secular stagnation also affects China and Russia, so there's no risk of transition, no new to our answers. It eviscerates 100% of the scenario. They also dropped the Vorak evidence that says that secular stagnation is harmless. There's been 19 years of that. And secular stagnation does not matter because even though the real GDP number is decreasing, the professor of economics argues that that's good because it proves that efficiency means that there's less real output, but we still have more military developments and we still have more military capability, which answers their entire argument. Now, China is declining now. The Newman evidence is more recent and far better than any card they've read. Oppenheimer's from 2021, Joshi's from 2022, and interested in hiding. Joshi goes negative because he's analyzing empirics about 2018 and before that, not about recent economics. economics, they considered a Warren to Newman that says that China's unemployment rate is at 46%. They're like Japan in the 90s. They have no risk of overtaking America now, and their old evidence does not apply because there's also new shifts in China's economy and new levels of debt that's causing their economy to collapse.
329.
What did you say? Can you start formulating?
Okay. Advantage 1, advantage 2, inflation falls. Good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Functionally conceding a takeout on disadvantageous means any risk of the case outweighs a very low risk this time going for the stagnation impact. Stagnation collapse is primacy, which causes global nuclear war through a number of scenarios. The first is proliferation of the countries do not perceive the U.S. as guaranteeing them through a strong economic base. They'll rush to proliferate nuclear weapons, which causes trip wires to be tripped in nuclear war. The second is security dilemmas. A world in which there are multiple states, multiple war will increase the risk of security dilemmas as countries will be aggressive because they don't know who is their allies, so they don't know who to trust. Now, the only two on our defense is here was just a question about how China's economy is doing because the the Krugman's second word about a relative decline in other countries is answered by our Oppenheimer and our Joshi evidence that both of these evidence assumes their changing demographics. It still says their GDP is increasing. There's a question about their military spending and tech and STEM. Those are the three key internal links because those are what the kind of GDP or the proportions of GDP that matter for military dominance globally. That was in the 1 hour job. By the 2 hour, the 1 easy Oppenheimer evidence says China's GDP is rapidly increasing over the long term, which answers all the warrants and the negatives evidence. And it's just about the short term growth of their GDP. The Joshi evidence also talks about STEM and innovation as being key or sectors of growth for China, which is definitely more important than all the other the stuff that 2 hour went for. The Joshi sure it's about 2018, but it says that up until 2018, China was increasing their growth, and it says that in 2018, the U.S. lost a large share of the economy, which is indeed is for the affirmative. It being in 2018 is irrelevant. Now I'll go to advantage 2. The resolve takeout does not take out any of advantage 1 because the resolve about U.S. warfighting potential, but we're going for the prolife scenario and the secret luminous, which is not relevant for U.S. warfighting, but it does take out the disside if they are conceding it, and they are conceding that it spills over to other forms of U.S. hegemony because it is about the disside. The impact scenario is about that Russia perceive the U.S. as faltering. They'll invade more of Europe, so it takes out more of the disside than it takes out of the app, but it doesn't take out any of the app because evidence says that GDP is the key internal link, which is extended by the 1 hour on case and on the counterfeit flow, so you know that we are sufficient to solve for perception of U.S. economic strength, to solve for proliferation and multipolarity, which are both huge risks because the chart are not contest either of them, which always did it said inflation. It is certainly a straight true because the 1 hour said that inflation is low now. The plan would increase production in the private sector by stimulating 2 things. The first is increase in tech investments as people lose laborers in their private sector. They'll start automating the jobs, which increases production. That's the one to see sort of storm evidence. Also, and the second warrant from the 1 hour was hiring costs. As the plan trains workers, it decreases hiring costs, so that companies can invest more in productivity that reduces inflation because we increase production more than we increase demand, which means that there's more production and the demand in the economy. So it decreases inflationary pressures because the inflation only happens when demand exceeds the production. That means and then we access all the impacts that the 2 extent on the inflation side. The inflation it escalates global hotspots and causes risks like climate and pandemics, which outweigh any risk of the other side. The 2 did not kick it functional or correctly. It is a straight turn politics. I'll start on the turns case though. It is all irrelevant because it is not a new argument because this evidence does not say anything. The evidence about Ukraine because our 1AC evidence is all about global decline, which is about relative U.S. decline, not about global decline in the economy, which is what the turns case stuff is about. But the disside is so low risk that the turns case stuff is all irrelevant. Now the framing issue is the first one about being a try or die. It goes both ways because voting negative allows the U.S. to aid Ukraine, which trades off with supporting our domestic base via the plan. Oppenheimer says the actors are acting aggressively and they don't think about Ukraine. They only think about GDP. So this try or die stuff is relevant. Plus, I'll lower the risk of the disside to near zero because they've conceded that Johnson opposes the bill. The first warrant I'll go for is GDP opposition. Though 2AC dies 11-12 evidence says that Johnson cannot support Ukraine at all because the GDP is so opposed. So there's no 2 hour warrants for why Johnson supports Ukraine. So it takes out all of you need. The second is that he is lying in the media whenever he has a quote about how he supports Ukraine. That is a cover for cutting Ukraine to get other priorities like immigration reform or other conservative priorities. Every time you hear a quote and their evidence, you should take it with a grain of salt. But the 2 are not extend any other card saying that Johnson supports the bill, which means there's a very, very low risk of the dissent. That's the 1 hour product evidence. Now I'll go to the English debate here. Yes, our evidence is pretty conclusive in saying that there's a very low risk of the plan passage. Recency is irrelevant because their evidence is just lying, as there's just lying to you because it's saying it's citing quotes and not citing what is really happening in Congress. There are a few warrants I'll go for that make unique as a headshot. The first, the distractions. The 2 didn't answer this. The House Lauder evidence on the 2AC says other issues are taking precedence over Ukraine aid, which means it's definitely not a priority. It'll be pushed to the side and never pass. The second is that no one will compromise because it is so politically toxic. The House for the Senate is having a huge fight. And the White House is also reacting. That's Joyce House evidence. The House rules also mishandled by the 2 It is and the bill must pass based on congressional rules with Republican votes. Before it comes to the floor, that's McIntyre evidence. Ukraine failed that test, which is explicitly in the 1 hour evidence. It is a long-standing rule that Johnson will never oppose. The 2 says that the funding bill disproves the fact that Johnson is willing to bypass the rule, but they have no carded evidence saying this, or 1 hour evidence says it's impossible for Johnson to ever pass it because he wants to obey the Hastert rule. Also immigration. The Johnson evidence says the Senate and the White House would have vetoed it if he included immigration, which is the 1 hour McIntyre evidence.
Good.
Yeah.
Hard docs.
I'm really upset that you didn't notice letters.
We'll learn it next time.
Next one.
gridlock, sir.
Thanks. Yeah, I think it's just my Wi-Fi.
It's kind of a big file. Yeah, I can open it when I download it from everyone else.
It's probably just.
soon we're about to send out some regarding some about this agenda.
Or design. I'm gonna ask this again down near the tail end. Sorry. Okay. Real good. This was a great debate. I ended up voting negative. I think the reason that I ended up voting negative is because the turns case analysis on the politics dissent is more or less uncontested in the 1AR and 2AR that make it very difficult for you to win a risk with the first advantage. I think that they're right on like a time frame level that in a world where Ukraine loses, there's a likelihood that it collapses, at least more perception, but also create a like more economic turmoil for the United States to actually create a more deterrent factor against other revisionist states. So I first think about the uniqueness debate, and the first thing I think about is this lying argument, which is a big part of the 2AR. I don't think that evidence is really in the context of like congressional thinking. It's more in the context of voters, because the title of the article is like how Mike Johnson hasn't earned our trust, and it doesn't really say anything in the context like what Senate Democrats are thinking or what House Republicans or House Democrats are thinking. Their evidence is more in line with like Johnson understands by the end of the year there's a need for aid to get passed for Ukraine, and so there's kind of like I just submitted it. Huh?
You just submitted?
Yeah. That's the case now. The evidence that they have is just like both Schumer and other Senate Democrats have already talked, and there's more likelihood that it's going to pass, considering that he's already kind of shifted his, Senate Democrats have already shifted their thinking to include border security on the bill, and also he's already willing to work with Senate Democrats on pushing Ukraine by the end of the year, so there's already a likelihood it's going to pass. So that kind of takes out the lying argument. The other uniqueness stuff that I think about in the 2AR is that it's just like, mostly because he doesn't have GOP support to pass the bill now. A lot of that is also mitigated because their evidence is saying that GOP Republicans understand that it's a hot button issue over like writ large for the electorate, so they understand that they have to get some funding passed. Particularly I think their LISA evidence is great because it says that even in the context of like an immigration bill for Democrats being added on as a rider to Ukraine aid, Democrats are still even more likely to work with Johnson. Johnson's going to reciprocate for getting more Ukraine passed by the end of the year. There's kind of like this time frame aspect of their evidence that says that it will get passed now. So it's just a question of a link, and I think that they're right considering that Tracy doesn't really touch the link, or the 1AR doesn't really touch the link portion of the debate, so I think that there's a high risk of the dissent. For the straight turn, I actually think that you win the straight turn, but absent contextualization to the impact, and the only two impacts that I hear in the 2AR are climate and disease. I don't really know how that implicates the Ukraine scenario. I think you were right to extend the straight turn on the dissent. I just don't think that there's a lot of impact comparison coming out of the 2AR that actually wins on the impact level against the Ukraine scenario. So given the high risk of turns case, I think the dissent outweighs, and that's why I end up voting.
I have a few questions.
Yeah.
Do you think that 2NR ever said that Johnson would support the bill?
Yeah.
Did you flow any lines saying that?
I heard a line that's just like, mostly link controls, direction of uniqueness, Johnson will pass with border riders, that's what I have. He's already de-linked from Gaza and Israel aid. So there's kind of already an indication that Johnson had, like the 2NR at the bottom of the uniqueness debate after it's like link controls, direction of uniqueness, and like our edits from 4 hours ago. Right. It's just like Johnson will pass with border riders because Senate Democrats have already indicated they want that. That's what I have.
Okay. Hastert rule, how did you evaluate that?
The Hastert rule stuff, I was kind of I had notes on this and I'm just blanking right now. Because that was the other part that I thought about, the Hastert rule stuff.
Oh, yeah. I think the part of this card that I end up evaluating the Senate Democrats portion of is it's just like, he's already marrying Ukraine to border security. That's like, the line is like, Johnson is marrying Ukraine to border security, that was rejected by Senate Democrats.
Right.
I don't know why their evidence doesn't answer that in a world where.
Yeah, like the argument that Hastert card is making is that before Johnson can like bring the bill to a vote, it has to have a majority of Republican support, because that's how like the GOP House caucus works.
Yeah.
So like the card says like the bill failed the Hastert rule, which is like a preliminary step that the speaker has to take before bringing the bill to the floor. Like I don't have the 2R answering that at all. Like how do you evaluate that uniqueness argument?
Because I end up evaluating by filtering it if Senate Democrats are willing to work with border security as a rider.
Well, yeah, but like it's isolated from Senate Democrats entirely. It is all about like whether or not Johnson will bring the bill to the floor.
Whether or not Johnson brings the bill to the floor.
Right, like if the card is saying like if he doesn't have
with
House
the
support.
border stuff.
Well,
attached
with
to
or
it.
without, like just entirely like you can't bring it to the floor without passing the Hastert rule.
Maybe then I was just missing the contextualization. Like maybe I was just missing the explanation of the Hastert rule in the context of the border security argument. Because I was thinking that with the Hastert rule, if the border is attached as a rider to the Ukraine aid, it will end up getting passed because it's like one of the GOP's pet policies, or like one of the key like MAGA policies that they want.
Okay.
And so if that gets attached to it, then it will pass, which is answered by whether or not Senate Democrats will also engage House Republicans on.
Okay.
I was just a little bit confused on like the
Yeah,
explanation of
okay.
that.
Stagnation, like Turns case analysis. The 1AR said a few times it's about like relative decline in U.S. GDP. Like obviously the Turns case, that was like Ukraine collapses like economies globally. The 2AR, like the first answer was like, our impacts about U.S. decline. How does that turn the case?
Because if in a world, I think they're winning that in a world where Ukraine loses, it kind of decimates, it decimates U.S. kind of projection of power abroad.
And like not other economies? Because like the Turns case card is like, if we lose in Ukraine, it will cause economic turmoil across the world, not just the U.S. Like why does that take out stagnation?
What the stagnation stuff? What do you mean?
Like stagnation's like if the U.S.'s GDP declines relative to other states, they lose their primacy. Like the Turns case card is like if we lose in Ukraine, collapses the economy globally.
collapses the economy globally,
Yeah,
and
that's like the first answer in the 2AR. Why do you think like the disadvantage turns the case?
Because I thought the disad accesses a faster scenario. I'm just
I understand that portion, but like I don't understand how like the Ukraine impact will turn U.S. relative decline in GDP.
because they've also made this framing argument that when other countries look to U.S. power projection, it's a question of Ukraine first, not anything else. Granted, like no one's really.
It's not like economy related then.
Yeah, I thought that the tumor was winning this kind of like broader impact came about when countries look to U.S. leadership and power projection. It's a question of Ukraine first since it's happening now, and then that was what filtered my thinking on.
Do you think like if the 2AR had like made the same arguments on the dissent that the 2AR made on case about like GDP being the key internal link?
Yeah, I think larger kind of implication of why GDP is a determinant factor in a world where a war is going on right now. Because I think like they're winning this idea that because Ukraine and Russia is happening now, that's like a filtering for how everybody else is kind of perceiving U.S. leadership and U.S. military power projection. If you're winning that, I think if you have like a better explanation of why like that's not the key determinant for other people's faith in America.
So like the case explanation, was it like not sufficient or should have been on the dissent? Because like on case and the 2AR we did say like.
Yeah, on case,
Okay.
that's what I thought too. I just think that also needs to be more contextualized to the dissent since, because I think that they're winning that. Given the conflict now, that's what filters how all other countries see U.S. power.
And then last question,
Yeah.
inflation dissent. If like the 2AR, like the two lines they said like climate change and pandemics, if those are like two external existential impacts, like the access is like 100% risk of, why does that not outweigh and mitigate a risk of the dissent?
Because I think in a world broader like World War III, as the negatives characterize it, isn't that faster and kind of makes like a responses argument.
Yeah, but do you think it's like not 100% risk? I don't understand like how you evaluated the straight term.
Because I there's no impact calculus being done that compares climate change and pandemics to a larger risk of like Ukraine causing World War III.
Do you think there's impact calculus in the 2NR that compares World War III to climate change, disease, and pandemics?
No, because they fucked up the straight term.
Well, yeah, so the straight term is like 100% risk, you agree? Like it is literally.
Yeah, sure, but I don't think that it's a larger impact considering that they're winning an external risk of war that
But
emanates
the
from-
risk of war is mitigated, right? It's like not 100, you'd agree, right?
I don't see why not if there's a risk of a link to the
Like
dissent.
uniqueness.
Well, the dis has not 100, right?
Sure, I think
But the
that they have
straight term
the
is-
larger impact still belongs to the dissent.
But like the straight term's at 100, right? Like they said the impact in the 1NR and we like conceded it.
Yeah, but I think that still comes down to who contextualizes the larger impact. Like, sure, I guess that like, I think like if I put numbers to it, I think the dissent is like a 90% risk, or versus 100% risk of pandemics and climate. No one's doing like comparative impact analysis of who has the kind of larger magnitude impact in a world of World War III. I have to assume that outweighs the responses to climate and pandemic.
Even though like they said in the 1NC, climate change, disease, those cause extinction. Like that's their argument that we've conceded. You think it's our job to go, these are bigger than their mitigated impact.
I mean, I guess in a world, I still think that because the dissent is faster, I have to end up evaluating that.
So it's just a time frame thing.
I think so. That's how I end up evaluating most impact debates, is because it's just a question of access of faster impact, and if both worlds are accessing an extinction scenario, I default to like which is more likely to cause a faster impact.
Okay.
But grade 3.
I have a couple questions.
Yeah.
For the straight term stuff, I thought it wasn't a straight term because the 1NR was complete.
No, they definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I guess for future debates, where can I have save time to answer the straight term? I guess I did some of the climate change defense on the case for the bureaucratic stuff. Do you think we would get,
I don't know.
I did some like climate change defense on the bureaucratic.
Yeah, with the, I think,
Should I
probably cross application of that would probably mitigate some of the risk of the straight term.
And then you also, so I also don't think I said like climate change with disease cause extinction, but rather they were terms case arguments in the case.
Wait, sorry, what?
In the 2NC when I was exciting inflation,
Mhm.
I said that climate change and disease were like terms case arguments, not external impacts to the case.
Let me.
Did you read Miller?
I skipped overview
Yeah, the turns case is like Hill's responses to pandemics.
Yeah, so do you think that the 2NR could just say the inflation is as not external into the like econ impact stuff and all the defense to econ advantage of
Sorry, where's that again?
Yeah, so the disease and pandemic stuff was not an impact that inflation causes, so there's no terminal impact to it.
It's only a turns case argument.
Yeah.